the Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim Regan and Kaitlyn Hedger, presented by Prairie View Wealth and Tax Advisors. Live your 2-comma life.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Kickstart podcast. Hey, Kaitlyn.
Hey.
Kaitlyn, my co-host with me. I'm Tim Regan, founder and owner of Prairie View Wealth Partners. Kaitlyn is one of our advisors and the head of our Kickstart program.
And the only advisor with hair at Prairie View.
Yes. So
not that I'm bragging.
Yeah, currently. And so, well, we can change that.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
We're going to get a lot of comments of, please show us Tim and Bob in a wig, please.
No, I was going the other way.
No.
And so let's talk this. So Kickstart program is geared all around helping people that probably there's a gap in the financial planning industry, we think, where it's really hard for people as they're starting their careers, starting their families, getting started in life. There's not a whole lot of really sound personal financial advice geared towards that group. And so we're kind of looking at what that decade of 25 to 35 and trying to figure out how do we get them on the right track to live their 2-comma life. 2-comma life, again, is just our version of what's it take to live like a millionaire. There's 2 commas in $1 million. That's where the 2-comma part comes from. And it's when we say live the millionaire lifestyle, everybody pictures living in abundance and freedom and not in scarcity and all that kind of stuff. So the Kickstart program is all about how do we help kickstart 25 to 35-year-olds in living that 2-comma life.
It is.
And so we talked last time a little bit about goal setting. What's the next piece of this? Like, where do I go? Okay, so I got all these goals. Now what am I going to do with it?
Yeah. So the whole Kickstart program is us figuring out where you want to go, and then let's assess where you're at, because we can't figure out how to get there until we know where part A
where
is.
We're starting.
Exactly.
Sure.
So our step 2.
You mean like a road trip looks different if I'm going to Florida from Chicago versus Austin? Like,
sure is.
Those are different paths that I might take?
A
little bit. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about cash flow management and debt management and just
cash flow. That sounds like a really big word, which is probably just also an easy way of saying like budget.
Yep.
And I don't like budget either.
Nope.
And so
to dumb it down even further, it's what's coming into the bank account, what's going out, and what do we need to change?
Sure.
Do we need to change anything?
Yep. And if I'm going to change something, is that it's because you're telling me that shame on you shouldn't spend money on that? Or is that you like just saying, let's get in alignment with what my goals are? Like, how do I know what I need to change in my
Exactly.
spending?
Well, and that's exactly why that's step 2 after goal setting. Now that we understand where you're trying to go, our decisions that we're making, especially when it comes to income, outcome, those kind of things, when it comes to your bank account, those have to be geared towards your goals. Otherwise, your actions and intentions are not aligned.
Sure.
So that's where a lot of it comes from.
And so when you think about that kind of stuff, like give me some common stuff that you see that where people like might make a change or might make a difference in what they're spending money on.
The biggest thing is a lot of times, if we aren't keeping track of what's coming in and out, things are leaving that we don't even remember signing up for.
Sure.
So when we build that budget, we're going to look at what's coming in. So where's your income coming from? Do you just work your full-time job and that's it? Do you sell shoes on the side? Do you got some side gigs? Then we'll look at, these are the bills that I know I have every month. They're relatively the same. It's my rent. It's my phone bill. It's my iPass replenishment, whatever that is. And then last, it's our variable expenses. So how much I'm spending on groceries a week. Do I have a vacation fund that I like to put some money in? Things like that. And then we'll take a look at, where are we spending all our money? Part of those variable expenses is, am I spending too much on groceries? So a lot of time we'll have people take a look at like 3 months as an example, January, February, March.
Sure.
And let's point out with our variable expenses, are we dining out too often? And it's not to take a look at you and say, shame on you. I fall into that trap all the time.
Yeah.
It's to take a look at, how do we make sure that every dollar is being used for a good purpose? We call that money mapping.
Yep. Oh, so when I map that out and start seeing it, like, so you're not going to tell me you can only spend $8 a month on going out to eat, but you might point out and say, well, if you cut back here, you could put over here, and that might be a better map to where you want to get to.
For sure. And that's the biggest shock, I think, to people. No one wants to talk about budgeting, icky, but that people don't, I don't know what I'm spending unless I keep track of it.
Sure.
And all of a sudden I'm like, did I just spend $200 on Chipotle? I hope not, but yikes.
Well, the one that always gets me that I think is a pretty big number is, so I'm old, and like for Sarah and I think we've like DoorDashed twice in our life. Like, and then we talk to some clients who are having their groceries getting DoorDashed 3 times. And like, you look at all of those fees and expenses, and that can come up to a pretty significant number.
Oh, for sure. It adds up
over and above what I was already going to spend at the grocery store or getting my lunch or whatever.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing that we see too is, when you're living at home, and that's why this 25 to 35, if you're early in that, you might be living at home and you might get used to a certain type of lifestyle.
Sure.
So like, for example, when I lived with my mom, I was getting my nails done every week. I subscribed to like a monthly massage. Those are things that, God, I loved them.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to be really intentional with some of my goals now, now I've moved out and, I'm going to be buying a house soon, going to be paying for a wedding soon. I have to prioritize.
Knock on wood.
I know.
Right. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. No, for sure. And now all of a sudden it becomes easier to say, do I want this or do I want this?
Right.
And where before you did that first step of goal setting, you might not have recognized or thought about, I have these other things I want to do.
Exactly.
And then when you start mapping that with the money you have coming in, now it becomes like, it's always fun to go out to eat, but it might become easier to say, no, we're not doing this because I'm going to take that $50. I'm going to put it towards whatever.
Well, and decisions start to become easier when you have that resource to go back to. You're trying to decide, should we pay for a private caretaker for the kids versus doing a regular daycare program through the school?
Sure.
You can go back to that money map and say, is this feasible? Should we be looking at different options? It's that rock that you can continue to go back to, and it'll change over years.
Yeah. And how does that align with the
Bingo.
other goals that we have?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so when you sit down and do that stuff, I don't even know how to spell budget. So like, that's not my strong suit. Is that something then that you're going to help us kind of like keep on top of and, like review with us, or what does that look like?
Exactly. That is our go-to for everything. Because we're going to talk about other things like life insurance, like estate planning down the road, but we need to understand what the income looks like.
And so then as you're mapping out your income and your expenses and that kind of stuff, is that something that you're going to like follow up with me on? Are you going to help me keep track of, or like help me to understand what that?
Yeah, we have to, and it might seem small. So what might happen is, we're looking at your expenses, your variable expenses, things like that. And you might only have $50 a month, but doing nothing with that $50 a month is going to set you back 10 steps versus if we say, okay, let's put that $50 to work, regardless of what that looks like. Maybe it's going to savings. Maybe it's going for that nail appointment. I mean, I wish nails were $50 a month these days, but but let's be intentional with every dollar that comes in.
Yeah. Well, and I like to think about it sometimes even so. It's like choose your hard. Either I can have easy now and blow the $50, but it's going to be harder later when I can't hit my bigger goals, or I can be hard now and not just blow it and have it easier later on. And I think about it a lot. I look at my like diet, and I've like forever, I've never really been a sweets guy. I'm like, if somebody asks if I want a dessert, I'd be like, yeah, I have a brat for dessert, right? But somewhere in my mid-40s, I started liking sweets. I don't know why. I started liking them.
Because they're amazing.
And so I'd get home from the office, and I'd probably grab like Chips Ahoy out of the pantry just to have a snack before dinner. Well, then I noticed all of a sudden that turned into 1 before and 2 after. Then it was 1 before, 2 after, and a Reese's peanut butter cup. Now you think about that in general, 3 cookies and 1 piece of candy. I'm a big guy. That doesn't sound like a lot, but what that does is that adds an extra 260 calories a day to my diet. Well, if I take 260 calories and look at, there's 3,500 calories in a pound, that means every 13 days, if the math was perfect, I'd be gaining a pound. I'd look up in a year and be like, oh, now I know what happens.
Exactly.
Right? And it's the same thing kind of with your money, where I didn't think grabbing 3 cookies and a Reese's was a big deal, but you don't realize that slow erosion, where if you put together a budget, have some ideas around where my money's going, now I can be really intentional with where is that leakage and
Exactly.
is it intentional?
Exactly. Well, and another tough conversation to have too when it comes to your cash flow and just those type of things is debt. Debt is that word that you're like, oh, it gives you the heebie-jeebies. You don't want to talk about it. But it's going to happen. Student loans, you got to think about it's an investment in your future too. It's not this whole big wash that, man, I wish I didn't do it. For me, I loved my college experience.
Sure.
I graduated with
Go
student
you
loans.
Indeed, right?
Go Greyhounds, and it's not this big scary thing when you have a plan to tackle it, and so taking a step back and again, making every dollar work for you. Part of that is being okay with your debt that you carry, and let's figure out a plan to tackle it so that you can breathe easy and live a 2-comma life, doing the things that you want to do and not feeling this huge pressure of,
Well, and I always think about it. I was fortunate my freshman year of college. I went and talked to like the counselor that was on campus, whatever, and he had introduced me to this concept. I call it defining the monster.
Okay.
And what he said was, if you've got something that you're kind of scared of or kind of like get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, he's like, if you don't define it, it will fill the room. It will become huge.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute you define it, it's very manageable. And it's we find that a lot with student loans where people almost want to like bury their head in the sand. They're like scared of it. And so they don't define it. But if we put together kind of a budget and an overall plan, that can become very manageable. That now, yes, it's there. It's not going away. There's no reason to hide from it because it's always going to be there. But now we have a way that it's not so scary. And
that's why having such a customized plan for you matters. Because if you were to listen to the headlines or the advice that you might find on TikTok, pay off your student loans now because it's so horrible and you can't start your life until you pay them off.
Yeah.
That might not be right for you.
Yep.
It might make sense to just include it in your cash flow and then still save for your other goals. I mean, imagine it
well, the
has
thing
to be
that's
for
crazy
you.
with that is, and I'm not a pro, like go out and borrow a bunch of money to go to school necessarily, but if you end up in that position, your earning power is only going to get enhanced the longer you're in your career. And so the more you make, the more you'll have to put towards some of that debt. So sometimes having that stress around, I can't do anything until this is paid off, is really counterproductive for what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
And so step 1, set your goals. Step 2, put together a budget, but budget doesn't have to be scary. Doesn't have to be a bad word. You'll help people walk through it, and it can kind of act as a barometer for are we on track and tracking towards those goals we just set or not, and how do we live intentionally to do it? Am I hearing it right?
Spot on.
All right. So Kickstart 25 to 35. We'll kickstart you towards living your 2-comma life.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining this episode. If you have questions for us, want to contact, or just get more resources, please go to pv-wp.com. Be well.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim Regan and Kaitlyn Hedger. Presented by Prairie View Wealth and Tax Advisors. Live your 2-comma life. Learn more at pv-wp.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Retirement Readiness Podcast on your preferred podcast platform.